in any villains, it seems.
No, I'm not asked to very often.
Oh.
Because when he sent me the script, I couldn't believe it, and I didn't accept it. But he flew to California and persuaded me. I won't go into that detail. But eventually I find myself in Rome to do this movie. My first scene in the picture, before you see me, you see a very happy farm family. A father and 3 children, a girl about 16, and a boy about 18, and a boy about 9. And they're preparing something that's a very happy occasion out in the front of their farmhouse, a picnic, a lot of food. And in the midst of this happy thing, suddenly there is a shot from off screen, and the girl spins dead like that. And the father looks like this and looks up, and there's another shot, and he spins dead. And then the son, who's on his way in a buggy to the station, you find out later, to pick up the wife, the new wife that's going to come, he comes around from the barn, sees his father and his sister, and he looks up, there's another shot, he falls off the wagon. Then the little 9-year-old boy comes out of the house with 2 jugs, and he sees his mother, his father, and his sister, and his brother, and looks up, and then the camera turns, and from the shrubbery in distance, 5 ominous figures come. Long cloaks like this, broad-brimmed hats like this, unidentifiable from a distance, all with rifles in their hands. And they walk from, converging like this very slowly. And then the camera goes in back of one of the characters. As he comes forward in the foreground is a 9-year-old boy standing there absolutely petrified. And as he comes to a stop, the camera goes like this. This is the character. And Sergio, the director, was imagining the audience. It's Henry Fonda!
Oh, and getting the first laugh in the movie.
Yeah. And then the boy's sitting there, and the guy here next to me says, because we hadn't killed the whole family, obviously, now, and he says, what are we going to do now, Frank?
What are we going to do with this one, Frank?
My name is Frank, and I sort of spit a little tobacco out and look at him, and I say, you call me by name.
How did you call me by name?
And turn back to the boy, and I shoot the little boy. Is that being a heavy? That's for openers. That's the first scene.
That's just the audience warm-up. Was this film made?
Yes, and it was very successful. Not in this country.
What an opening.
It's still playing in Paris,
Once upon a time in the West, Henry Fonda lost his damn mind in the West. Nonetheless, in the movie of the very same title, Once Upon a Time in the West. Also starring the always awesome Charles Bronson, doing what he does best, getting revenge. Jason Robards as the lovable criminal known only as Cheyenne, since director Sergio Leone didn't think that Jason Robards could pull off a Mexican as he originally wrote it in the script, but had no problem letting Charles Bronson pull it off. And why not when you're willing to turn then always a good guy and legendary American actor himself, the great Henry Fonda, into a ruthless, soulless villain who has no problem killing defenseless children in cold blood. Yeah, Henry Fonda. And finally, the gorgeous Claudia Cardinale as Jill McBain, the first and I think only strong female lead in any Sergio Leone film, as we will see in this review of this 3-hour epic of long, drawn-out close-ups as a gunfight is about to go down. Wide shots of beautiful landscapes with an epically awesome with every single note score from the always satisfying composer Ennio Morricone. Of course, who else could score a Sergio Leone spaghetti western so perfectly? So without any further ado, let's get to it. Sergio Leone's 1968 spaghetti western masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in the West. That's right, folks, it's spaghetti western cinema at its finest and most beautiful. Once Upon a Time in the West is definitely one of the greatest films ever made. It's artsy-fartsy, but done right. Hell, done to perfection, like bringing a Bob Ross painting to life and watching as this awesome story unfolds. Even in the opening scene, where Sergio Leone manages to make waiting around for a train as the opening credits roll seem awesome. and without even using any Morricone music yet. He relies solely on the natural sounds at the station, which he dubbed in later, I'm sure, and the performances and close-ups of his actors, meaning everyone has a memorable face in this. That's how Leone casts his actors, based on their mug. And right out of the gate, we get Jack Ellum, Woody Strode, and this eerie-looking guy who played the one-armed bounty hunter in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I've been looking for you for 8 months. When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
They barely say a thing as they wait and just amuse themselves. Woody Strode sits under a water tank, and it's so cool that not even the dripping water on his hat disturbs him. And he just picks it up and drinks it when it's full. As a matter of fact, he seems to like that as much as Jack Ellum likes playing with flies. Wow, he caught that fly with the barrel of his gun. Was he trained by Mr. Miyagi? So finally the train shows up and Woody Strode loads up his Josh Randall wanted dead or alive mare's leg rifle as the train stops and no one seems to get off. Except for this luggage that the conductor just tosses out the door before bailing the station. Thanks, buddy. Just toss that anywhere. You should work for the post office. So thinking that no one got off the train, these three pillars of the community start to leave the station when... yeah, that's not the score. A dude did get off the train, and he's just standing there playing the harmonica. It's pretty fucking cool. Badass even. This must be the guy I'm looking for, methinks. And what do you know? It's Charles friggin' Bronson, the most badass king of cool himself. And what a face. Boy, do we get a lot of Charles Bronson face in this movie. Thank you for that, Sergio Leone. He has a badass face. I just need to say it. Charles Bronson is awesome at being Charles Bronson. He does this so well. Like Henry Fonda, such a professional at what he does. I'll watch anything with Charles Bronson in it just to watch Charles Bronson. And believe me, he's done some stinkers. So anyway, Charles Bronson is there to meet a guy named Frank. No, not TV's Frank. The guy named Frank who sent these three dupes instead.
Frank sent us.
To just kill Bronson for him. He don't want to meet him. But this is Charles Bronson, so he just guns down on all three of them. But not before saying this cool ass line.
You bring a horse for me?
Looks like we're shy of one horse.
Brought too many.
Get it? Too many? Meaning you're all gonna die because Charles Bronson only needs one horse. Woody Strode, however, manages to get a shot off before dying and nicks Charles Bronson. But he's fine, of course. So boom, we come right to the McBain farm, where we meet this guy, Brett McBain, played by Frank Wolf, who will always be Bill San Antonio to me. From God Forgives, ... I don't! Exclamation point. He was the main villain and he was great in that movie.
Good for you. Good for you.
Only here he's the opposite. He plays a family man, where he and his ginger family all prepare a feast for the arrival of McBain's new bride-to-be, who'll be arriving in the station in the town of Flagstone today. His first wife died 6 years ago, in case you're wondering.
My mother died 6 years ago.
This ain't their real mother. And because of that, the daughter here has a weird way of cutting bread, which is like cutting it right towards herself. Real kind of dangerous when you think about it. So his Papa McBain here promises that all sorts of riches are coming his family's way.
We're going to get rich, Papa.
He sends his oldest son to the station. Only he doesn't even get out of the yard when suddenly, out of nowhere, gunshots start going off. And the entire family is gunned down. Well, shit. This celebration got cut off short. And then to make things worse and even more horrifying, the only surviving child, the youngest son, this boy here, comes running outside to find his whole family dead, as they finally throw Ennio Morricone's awesome score right into his face. This electric guitar shit that I love so much. That's when the dirtbags that did this shit emerge from the thicket and stroll up to this lone survivor, and his camera does this cool pan to reveal the leader of this pack of demons when they reveal that it's Henry friggin' Fonda.
It's Henry Fonda!
And he's pure friggin' evil. And to prove it, he shoots this Opie kid right in the face when one of his goons is dumb enough to call him by his name. His name is Frank.
What are we gonna do with this one, Frank?
The guy Bronson wanted to meet at the station. See, he sent those other three because he had to go and murder this entire family of gingers. Real busy guy's got a lot on his plate. Then, toot toot, we cut to the train station in Flagstone, where McBain, who's dead now, bride-to-be, shows up expecting to see his mutton chops waiting there. And damn, this is Claudia Cardinal as Jill. She is a beautiful woman, I must say. Too hot for this guy, but I guess it wasn't about looks. And even she comes with her own awesome Ennio Morricone theme song. All the main characters get their own theme song in this film. It's great. Man, this fox must have been sexually harassed every single day. You know, it being the old West and all. So, seeing that there's no one there to greet her, Jill goes into the station to charter a ride to the McBain farm. When we get this awesome ass shot as we pan up and over the roof of the station and reveal the town of Flagstone. And I swear, Back to the Future 3 homaged this shot when Marty first arrives in Hill Valley in 1885. Oh yeah, it's gotta be. So Jill gets the lift to the McBain farm from this Lloyd Bridges looking guy, who takes her on what some have called the longest wagon ride in movie western history, as we start in the town of Flagstone, which was filmed in Spain on this elaborate and expensive set that they built. And then suddenly we're in the US in Monument Valley, where John Ford filmed all his westerns. And Sergio Leone loved John Ford westerns. He was a big fan. So this was a real treat for him, to be able to go out there and film that movie. So Lloyd Bridges decides to take a break at this rest stop haberdashery place here, in the middle of Monument Valley, just to have some booze, when Jill decides to enter this place, filled with men who've probably never seen a woman this hot before, but she's a tough woman. She's used to this shit. She was formerly a hooker in New Orleans, which excites the hell out of Lionel Stander, the bartender here.
New Orleans?
You've been there?
No.
My boss, always making me go to work in wacky bars in the middle of the desert. So then we hear, but don't see, a shootout happen outside the bar they're in, when the winner comes crashing in through the front door with his own theme song, meaning he's the next important character. This is Jason Robards as Cheyenne, the criminal who just escaped capture and he's still even wearing his cuffs. So he just sort of makes himself right at home in this place, as everyone just sort of lets him do what he wants. Yep, Jason Robards. I remember him from the movie Parenthood. He played the grandfather in that one. That was a couple decades later. Steve Martin movie. So after demanding some booze, we hear that harmonica again. And it's not part of the score, because everyone else hears it too. Cheyenne then slides the lantern down to the end of the bar to reveal... Yep, Charles Awesome Ass Bronson. Just sitting Indian style on the end of the bar playing the harmonica. So cool at just being cool. Cheyenne just sort of messes with Charles Bronson because, well, it's Charles Bronson just sitting on the end of the bar playing the harmonica, not saying a word, so we don't have to challenge him to a duel or anything.
Do you only know how to play, or do you know how to shoot?
Plus he has to get his handcuffs shot off first. That's when his fellow Cheyennesmen show up to rescue him. Only he did that himself, so screw you guys.
If I'd waited for you, I'd be in jail by now.
Bronson then inquires about the long dusters that the Cheyennes men wear, since the three dudes he gunned down at the station were dressed the same way, and so were Henry Fonda and his men. Only Cheyenne knows those weren't his men because, well, his men don't get killed. They just blotch rescue attempts. Bronson, such a wise ass too. I love it.
Well, you know music, and you can count all the way up to 2. Play harmonica. Only watch those false notes. Like so?
Man, he's so dang cool. So after this little stopover ends, Jill finally gets to the McBain farm to find what we all knew she would find, the entire McBain family dead, murdered, as the locals had them all sprawled out on the same tables that they prepared to feast on for her arrival. Well, that's just sad and depressing. Never thought I'd say this, but screw you, Henry Fonda, you evil bastard, you. They had to do this so Sergio Leone could establish Henry Fonda as a villain. And boy, did he nail it. He's no longer the lovable Henry Fonda we once knew, as Tom Joad or Mr. Roberts or that guy from 12 Angry Men. Nope, now he's all about homicide. And it also turns out that Jill and Brett McBain had actually already got married back in New Orleans, and it was supposed to be a surprise when she arrived in town, but oh well, this just keeps getting worse for her. Then one of the locals discovers a piece of Cheyenne's men's dusters nearby, meaning they must have committed this massacre, I guess.
You got no way of knowing, but this is as good as a signature.
Only this is all a frame-up to divert attention away from Henry Fonda as Frank here. He likes planting evidence. He's a smart guy for a psycho. So Jill McBain decides to stay anyway. Why not? Nice big house that was meant to be her home anyway. Nice bed, nice room. Boy, that mutton chop McBain really loved her, I guess. What a waste. So this fatty meets up with Charles Bronson the same way a lot of dumbasses like this meet up with Charles Bronson. He kicks your ass and calls all the shots. Which is not hard to do with this pathetic dick called Wobbles. Yeah, it's his character's name. Wobbles. You wobbles, alright. He was the one who set up that meeting for him and Frank earlier. Only no Frank, just Jack Ellen, Woody Strode, and this nut. Now Charles Bronson's so smart that he already knows that Frank set that whole massacre up to look like Cheyenne's men did it.
That was always one of Frank's tricks. Fake good evidence.
Then snap, we cut to the McBain farm that night, where we get to see that mutton chops McBain had toys. A toy model of a train station. Aw, cool. I want it. Give it to me. Jill's then interrupted by the sound of that harmonica again, coming from outside in the darkness. Obviously, it's gonna be Charles Bronson. What the hell's he doing creeping around in the dark? Around this lady's house at night, playing the harmonica like a weirdo? This forces her to take a shot at him so she can get some sleep and peace. I'm sure he's fine though. So next morning she cleans herself all up to go outside and face Charles Bronson, who's probably still out there, lurking about. Only she comes face to face with Mr. Cheyenne leader himself instead. Jason Robards, who just lets himself in. Brings his theme song with him too. So Cheyenne's here because he's a little ticked off about being framed for murdering the entire McBain family. And he knows he didn't do it. We know he didn't do it too. He ain't such a bad guy, Cheyenne.
See, I ain't the mean bastard. People make out.
He's more like Tuco as the ugly and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just a lovable criminal who's misunderstood.
I don't know the right thing.
Only he wants answers. The same answers we all want. Why was this entire family murdered, and why are the Cheyenne's men being framed for it?
You know anything about a man going around playing a harmonica?
Yeah, she's aware of him. She was at the bar too, remember Robards? Or are you too busy having a good time, admiring Charles Bronson? She's used to things like rape, this lady, Jill. Doesn't even seem to bother her.
If you want to, you can lay me over the table and amuse yourself. And even call in your men. When you're finished, all I'll need will be a tub of boiling water. And I'll be exactly what I was before.
Nothing that a hell bath can't take care of.
Just another filthy memory.
Wow. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my vagina and send him down the drain. Yeah, take that shit back, some rapist. It was a different time. This chick is great though. She's being as strong as she can be in the face of nothing but mostly terrible people. So kapow! We cut the Henry Fonda now. Still pure evil, and now meeting with his boss, Mr. Morton, the guy who invented iodized salt. No, I'm just kidding. He's a rich train tycoon guy who actually lives on a fancy train, like he's Jim friggin' West or something. Only this guy has a corrupt, evil, political type. Real scumbag. Only he's dying from tuberculosis to the bones, so he's crippled and can't even walk on his own. Which I guess makes Henry Fonda his evil Artemis Gordon. And I swear, I hear this voiceover guy who does his voice a lot in these spaghetti westerns. It's so familiar.
Now Mrs. McBain is turned up.
This guy is Fonda's meal ticket though. For now. He pays Fonda to do his biddings for him. Like murder an entire family, for example. Which was not what he wanted. Fonda just went all gun happy.
And they told you to scare them.
People scare better when they're dying.
Fonda even has aspirations of taking over this guy's business as soon as he croaks. Which could be any day now. But now that the widow Jill McBain is in the picture, this messes up all of Morton's plans. He wanted to take over that whole farm so his train could go through there, no problem. So now I guess Henry Fonda has to go kill her too. We then cut back to Jill and Cheyenne as she tells him her whole tale about being a whore in New Orleans. Meeting Brett McBain. He wanted to marry her and claimed to be rich. Only this farm in the middle of the desert seems to be all he owned. But she said, why not? Go have a life, blah blah blah. And now she's here. And now she's convinced there's no money here at all. And plans on leaving and going back to New Orleans.
Mrs. McBain goes back to civilization.
Cheyenne thinks Jill deserves better.
You deserve better.
But then again, so did Mutton Chops.
The last man told me that. He's buried out there.
So then Cheyenne leaves Jill alive and unraped, which is a big plus in the Old West. Jill then heads into the barn to start packing, where we find that that's where Charles Bronson and his harmonica have been hanging out. See, he just can't not be cool. Every move. Just stand there playing the harmonica. So bad. So he borderline rapes her. But wow, if I were a woman, this shit would be sorta hot to me. Probably because I'm a huge Charles Bronson fan. But I'd have to be a woman to find it hot. So then they stroll aside so Charles Bronson can get some fresh water when... Did he just crack a smile there? Out of nowhere, two men come charging towards Bronson and Jill, which, of course, Charles Bronson makes sure works. And apparently Robards and his men saw all this shit too.
He can shoot, too.
Did he just sacrifice two of his own men just so we could see if Charles Bronson could shoot? I'm not sure if that's what happened here. We'll find out. Jill then goes to Fatty McMiddleman and tells him to tell Frank that she wants to meet with him personally because she knows all about this shit now.
Personally.
Stay out, I guess. A room that says stay out on. Don't come in here. So Charles Bronson put Jill up to this shit on purpose. Go in there and make this meeting with Frank so he could follow this fat idiot straight to Henry Fonda and rich train tycoon guy. So when Fatty shows up on the train with this story, Frank figures out this was a trick in a matter of seconds so that Fatty would be followed, which he was, which leads to my favorite line in the whole movie. When Frank tells Fatty who's wearing a belt and suspenders here.
How can you trust a man that wears both a belt and suspenders? Man can't even trust his own pants.
Even evil Henry Fonda can sometimes be great. So then the train leaves the station with Charles Bronson right on top of it, even though Frank knows he's up there, which leads to his immediate capture, of course. And Bronson and Fonda get to meet eye to eye. We get to see a few seconds of a blurry flashback Bronson is having of a man walking towards him. Who is that? Oh well, he's caught.
End of the line.
So Fatty, you fucked up. You led Bronson right to Frank. So Frank kicks him right off the train, allowing him to spot Cheyenne, who's also along for the ride. Hey, Robards, what are you doing hanging around down there? Fatty tries to warn Fonda too, only too late. He really hates you for wearing a belt and suspenders at the same time. So those two guys that Bronson gunned down at McBain's actually worked for Frank. Okay, well that clears Robards. He's okay in my book. Bronson then points out to Frank how all his goons keep getting killed by him. That's when Frank realizes that this is the same guy who made that appointment at the train station at the beginning of the film. He wants to know who the hell he is and what the hell he wants, naturally.
What do you want? Who are you?
Bronson answers him by simply giving him the names of some of the people he's killed over the years.
Dave Jenkins.
Dave Jenkins dead a long time ago.
Calder Benson.
What's your name? Benson's dead too.
Clever bastard you. So Don, Mr. Rich Guy here, Morton, he cuts into all of this so he can send Frank off to kill Jill McBain. Well, he's not actually kill her, he just wants him to make a deal with her, buy the farm off her. So he does, and he just leaves Charles Bronson there on the train until he gets back, keep more informing sort of thing. He actually does say that, keep more informing.
Keep him warm for me.
As a prisoner, as the train moves on, that's when Robards decides to swing on in. Bam, that's one down. And now he's in the train to kill two more. Bam, bada bam. Before using the shitter to skyrocket himself back at the top of the train. Kaboom! Yeah, there he is. Nice move. So then his theme song plays as we wait for the last guy to get killed by a boot with a gun in it. Great gag. Great freaking gag. He's a bit wacky there, Robards. He thought it was your foot. See? So now with it down to just a crippled guy, Charles Bronson, Cheyenne enters the train again via the shitter. Now that Cheyenne and Bronson are buddies, he nicknames the train guy Mr. Choo Choo.
Mr. Choo Choo.
I like it. So we're going with Mr. Choo Choo. Better than Morton, the iodized salt guy. They let him live because he's so pathetic and easy to find and go after Frank instead. Because he's a bigger pain in the ass. So cut to the town of Flagstone, flip! Where Jill has received a huge order of lumber and building supplies that Brett McBain had ordered and paid for before his untimely death. Only why?
McBain also ordered this. Said it was important.
Jill then starts to figure it out when she sees a blank sign that he had ordered with nothing printed on it. Station. Like in his toy, only much bigger. So Jill goes searching for that toy again when, uh-oh, Henry Fonda found it first.
Looking for this?
Give me back my toy, Henry Fonda. So then we cut to Mr. Choo Choo, who has made it off the comforts of his train. Even Henry Fonda points out how weird this is. He's like out of his element, and is now at Frank's hideout.
Out on that train, you look like a turtle out of its shell.
Where for fun, Frank kicks his helpless ass over and makes fun of the fact that he's gonna die soon. What a dick. But that guy was a dick too. He actually came here because he knows Frank kidnapped Jill. And he's tired of all this killing shit that he never wanted in the first place. He just wants to pay people off so he can get that damn land he wants. He's just a railroad baron who just wants to stay a rich douchebag until he dies. So then we finally get to see what this whole shitstorm is all about.
What the hell is this? Can't you see? It's a station.
Turns out that McBain was planning on building a train station. And around that entire town, he had a plan. A cool-ass plan. An elaborate-ass plan. That took years of waiting for the railroad to reach this piece of unwanted land. And why? Because this land was sitting on water. And what the trains need to run? Water!
And the only water for 50 miles west of Flagstone is right here. Under this land.
Yeah, this was his dream. Only in the contract, he had to have the whole station built before the railroad arrived, or no deal. It's a weird contract, I know. So Cheyenne and his men, along with Charles Bronson, get right to work on building that station.
You don't sell the dream of a lifetime.
Build a station, idiots!
Since Jill's now being held captive and fondled by Henry Fonda. I never thought I'd see the day. So to make things as creepy as possible, he talks all about how he's gonna kill her, and what a tramp she is, like he's one to talk. At least she never shot Opie in the face. She gives it to him though, in his crazy bed it's hanging from the ceiling. Just another bad memory for her.
Great invention, the telegraph.
I sent shivers down my spine. That's eerie, even if it is Henry Fonda. Make that bathwater extra hot, Jill.
Just the type to marry a whore.
McBain was a saint compared to you.
I could marry you.
Married? Are you kidding? Fat chance, Fonda. Good thing he's just fucking around. Still gross though. Then, whack a slap. It's the next day, and we are at the sale auction for the McBain farm, where the auctioneer and sheriff are being played by Keenan Wynn. Yeah, he's a character actor. Acted for decades. His father was I Love to Laugh guy from Mary Poppins was his dad. No one wants to bid though. Like in Boot Hill, they're all too scared of being killed by Frank's men, and they put this oldie right in his place by squishing his face. Then in this scene, they don't actually say it, but rich train guy here offers Frank's men $500 each to kill Frank, since he's getting sick of all his bullshit. So clearly she's gonna get screwed in this whole thing, as Frank's men offer a measly $500 for all the land. When Charles Bronson awesomely appears out of nowhere with his offer of $5,000.
$500?
$5,000.
Fuck yeah. He's using the reward offered on Cheyenne of $5,000 as a payment. Who's still cracking jokes too.
The reward for this man is $5,000, that's right?
Judas was content with $4,970 less.
When Charles Bronson says my second favorite line in this film,
There were no dollars in them days.
they didn't have dollars in them days. No shit they didn't. That's funny to me for some reason. I like their back and forth.
The sons of bitches. Yeah.
Sheriff Keenan Wynn then sends Cheyenne and his theme song off to jail as we see two men following him. I think they're his own men. Maybe they're gonna go help rescue him. We then get to see Charles Bronson and Jill have a little talk as they discuss how remarkable they find one another. Ooh, nice.
Cheyenne's right, you're a remarkable woman.
And you're a remarkable man.
Henry Fonda then walks in in that awesome black outfit that he's wearing. He looks great, man. Shit. Terrifying, too. Like he's the devil. This reminds Jill that she wants to go take a bath now after having Henry Fonda all over her last night.
I think it's time I fill that bathtub.
Frank is right to the point, too, and asks Bronson again who the hell he is.
Who are you?
Bronson again replies by just rattling off names of people he's killed.
Jim Cooper, Chuck Youngblood. They were all alive before they met you, Frank.
Tired of all this shit, Henry Fonda just wants that McBain farm, so he offers Charles Bronson $5,000 plus his little counter offer, I guess, and ups it by $1 whole just to be a dick.
You got a right to make a profit too.
We then see Bronson have another flashback. This one's a little more clear. Starts to focus in a bit. As we can see, it's Henry Fonda walking towards him. Only his hair looks different. It's like they're trying to make him look younger or something. Only no time for that. Bronson then goes on about how Frank's come a long way since he teamed up with that rich train guy, but nonetheless is still a dirtbag. Charles Bronson then says a big fuck your offer to Henry Fonda before going upstairs and watches from the window as Frank's own men try to kill him. He even busts in on Jill right as she's washing Henry Fonda right out of her hair. He then continues on to help Frank not get killed by his own men. as Frank, who's just as confused by why the hell he's suddenly helping him now. But any Western fan knows that he's keeping him alive just so that he can kill him himself. Dirthead. A lot of clock references in this scene too. Unfinished clocks. Weird. This one doesn't even have hands, just so Bronson can say this line.
Time sure flies. It's already past 12.
Awesome. Hey, Wrigley Scott had a store in Flagstone. No time for that though. And then Frank rides off to find Mr. Choo Choo for trying to have him killed. Only someone beat him to the punch as we find the train, and everyone on it has been killed already. Some sort of gun battle that went down. Frank then finds a half alive and dying in the dirt Mr. Choo Choo, and seeing how pathetic he is, just leaves him there to suffer to death before leaving, and does. Then toot toot, cut to the railroad. That's getting closer and closer to the McBain farm, so you better wrap this shit up soon. Charles Bronson just sits around waiting and whittling. Then Cheyenne, who's managed to free himself again somehow, busts in on Jill for some coffee. They run smack dab right into each other. But now they're happy to see each other because they're kind of, buddies now.
Did you make coffee?
Coffee with Cardinal. Sounds nice.
My mother used to make coffee this way.
Like Mama's coffee. Starting to think Cheyenne sees Jill as like a mother figure, I think. So then Jill asks what the hell Bronson's doing just sitting out there. His answer's awesome too.
He's whittling on a piece of wood. I got a feeling when he stops whittling, something's gonna happen.
Whoa, they're building the shit out of this tension. And then, yep, the all dressed in black Henry Fonda rides right into McBain land, because there's really nowhere else for him to go at this point. Everyone's either dead or there. So he might as well go have his final showdown with Charles Bronson, since it's the main kind of part of the storyline we gotta wrap up now. And get some friggin' answers. Answers that Charles Bronson promises to give to Henry Fonda, but only at the point of death. Yeah.
Because I know that now you'll tell me what you're after.
Only at the point of dying.
That main answer being, why the hell do you want to kill Henry Fonda, Charles Bronson? Fonda's all in, of course.
I know.
Then we get to hear Cheyenne give Jill advice on how to deal with sexual harassment of the old West. And he's doing all this while shaving.
Can't imagine how happy it makes a man to see a woman like you.
Trying to justify all these male urges that men have. Trying to explain them to her, I guess.
And if one of them should pat you behind, just make believe it's nothing. They earned it.
Guess butt taps are earned if you help build the railroad. That's his theory. You get arrested for that shit nowadays. Damn. Wow. Hey Jennifer Love Hewitt. I just helped finish dismantling the railroad. Therefore I feel I'm entitled to, I don't know, kind of squeeze your boobies? You don't look like you want me to do that. Stupid 2023. I helped dismantle the railroad. I'm entitled to this. Jason Robards said so. Fine. I'm gonna do this then. See, I'm just as creepy as Henry Fonda now.
Great invention, the telegraph.
I built the railroad. I can do what I want to woman. Let me touch your butt at least. Come on. So cut right to the showdown, complete with the epic score we all knew better friggin' be there. Wide shots, then close-up shots of these two awesome faces that leads right into what could possibly be the closest close-up anyone's ever done on a human being's face, as we go directly in to Charles Bronson's eyeballs pretty much, as they take up the entire friggin' screen. That's right folks, Charles Bronson's eyeballs taking up the entire screen. It's no joke. This is just beautiful, isn't it? I don't care how slow it is. You need an excuse to play that entire track of the score. Make it good, and they do. As we get the full flashback this time, you see young Henry Fonda with that hairdo again. Man, he looks hilarious with that one. Trying to make him look younger. As he pulls out a harmonica and shoves it into the mouth of a young Charles Bronson, whose brother is standing on his shoulders with a noose around his neck. This is a fancy ass way of killing somebody. So this is why. It was an endurance contest that Charles Bronson had no chance of winning. Once his legs gave out, he collapsed, causing his brother to be hung because of a cruel, sick man who thought this shit was funny. And did shit like this so often that years later he didn't even remember Charles Bronson Until now. Go back to the gunfight where, BAM! Frank is hit and Bronson wins, of course. But to keep his word, lets Frank know who he is at the point of death. Which he finally remembers before dying in the dirt. Probably thinking, shit, I really should have killed that guy too. Finally, for Charles Bronson, that's a long time in the revenge business. Just like Inigo Montoya and the Princess Bride. But it's all over now. Go take a shit or something. So then cut back to Cheyenne and Jill, where Jill's kind of decided that after looking at Jason Robards up and down a little bit, he ain't such a bad, sexy guy of the Old West, I suppose. I don't know. He's still the grandfather from Parenthood to me.
You're sort of a handsome man.
But Robards knows better and knows that he ain't right for her.
But I'm not the right man.
And also knows that Charles Bronson ain't right for her.
And neither is he. People like that have something inside. Something to do with death.
He's all about death. You got that right. As any Charles Bronson fan knows, death shows up a lot in his titles. 5 Death Wish movies and 1 Death Hunt. And when Bronson comes strolling on in the winter, Jill can sort of see that Cheyenne was right. He is all about death and shit. And has no intention of sticking around this place. He's Charles friggin' Bronson. Society has broken him. So relatable. So he says peace out with a slim possibility returning. Maybe. God, I hope so. For her sake. Bang old Charles Bronson. Maybe he'll get his shit together by then. Be more about life than death. Then Cheyenne decides to bail out too. But not before tapping Jill on the behind just to remind her.
Make believe it's nothing.
So she's all alone now. But owns this whole town and station and farm. So she should be fine financially at least. Then we see Charles Bronson and Cheyenne riding off together when we discover that this whole time that he's been there back on the McBain farm, Cheyenne has been shot and hiding it from everybody. Apparently that little aftermath of the gun battle that we saw in Mr. Choo Choo was him and his buddies. I mean, if you watch it carefully, you'll see that I think some of the dead guys were the ones following him. Anyway, that whole shootout was him, and he got shot by Mr. Choo Choo, who panicked, pulled a gun, and actually got a shot in. So he's been wounded this whole fucking time and dying from it apparently. So yeah, he's dying now, and in a rush. So Bronson wanders off at his request, so he won't have to see him die. Then just drops dead, theme song and all. And that's the end of the movie pretty much. As the camera pans away to show the oncoming railroad of progress busting its way across the American West into the future. We then even see Charles Bronson riding off into the distance with Cheyenne slumped over his horse dead. That's when Jill decides to say to hell with it, I'll deal with all the butt taps, and offers all the railroad workers some water. And they're definitely taken in because a huge crowd gathers around this hot woman with 2 jugs of water and 2 jugs of boob. And that's when they finally decide to throw the title of the movie at you, a little late, and man, it's out of freaking control. Somebody catch it. Where the hell's it going? Oh, it's gone. And that's the end to the most beautiful filmed movie I have ever seen. This truly defines epic. And it keeps right on going too. You still see Bronson riding off, Jason Robards' corpse and all, disappearing slowly into the distance so they can finish that entire track from the score. I do have one weird question though at this point. Who took care of Henry Fonda's corpse? Did Charles Bronson bury him that fast? I mean, he was back in that cabin pretty quick. Is he still just lying out there for the buzzards? Oh well, one of those it's up to the viewer kind of things, I guess. Which brings me right into my final thoughts on this Sergio Leone epic masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in the West. Now, Once Upon a Time in the West is considered one of the greatest westerns of all time, and deservedly so. This film is a work of art, damn it. Sergio Leone knew exactly what he was doing. The man was a perfectionist who loved his work and loved American history, and told it mythologically through these movies. And for a 3-hour film, I can't find a single flaw in how Leone did it. So damn epic and big, I could talk about it for hours. Boy, was Sergio Leone on a winning streak in the 60s with these epics. First the whole Dollars trilogy, and now this. Awesomeness. I can't say a bad thing about this movie because it's just too damn good on every level of cinematic art. And still is, in my opinion. I'm still fascinated by how at the end of the movie, Jason Robards' character Cheyenne was shot the entire time at the end of the movie there, back at the McBain farm, and pretended not to be. And pulled it off pretty well. You could sort of see him just sounding like, meh, but you know, he was shot all that time. But why? Just so you could see how all this shit ends, and have coffee with a beautiful woman, and pat her on the ass before dying? And of course to see if Charles Bronson beats Frank or not, which of course he did. That would be a bummer ending if you didn't, right? Now, some interesting facts that I found out about this movie was, well, first of all, this one here, this bar set that they used in the town of Flagstone was later used in My Name is Nobody, the one that nobody had a drinking contest at. Then there's this cool fact. That bar that they stopped at in the middle of Monument Valley, the exteriors were shot there, but all the interior shots were filmed back in Italy at a studio. And Sergio Leone was such a perfectionist and wanted this to look so perfect that he actually imported dirt from Monument Valley because it has a particular color. It's like this red kind of desert dirt that doesn't exist in Italy. So we had it imported from Monument Valley to Italy. So in this scene right here where the Cheyenne's man come busting through the door and you see all the dirt and dust come flying in with him, and it's all red looking, that's authentic, real, imported from Monument Valley dirt. Yeah, he's that much of a perfectionist. I guess he could have just dyed regular dirt and it wouldn't have mattered, but he wanted it to be actual Monument Valley dirt. So the scenes would blend together that perfectly. I think he did a great job. That's perfection right there for you. Now, from what I've read, this movie didn't do well in the United States upon its initial release, but it did great in Paris. But now it's considered a classic nearly everywhere. And I heard that some versions at one time cut out all of Lionel Stander's parts because he was blacklisted and shit. Can you believe that? No Lionel Stander. Sorry, Lionel. You're not in this.
Leone's!
You've been there?
No.
My boss always getting me blacklisted from movies. I did read that in the sex scene here between Henry Fonda and Claudia Cardinal, his wife demanded to be present when they filmed that shit. Can you believe that? I do, yeah. And in this opening scene here, this Indian woman who's running away is actually Woody Strode's real life wife. Something I read it on IMDb anyway. So some may say this movie's too long and too slow and has too many close-ups. Well, then you just don't get spaghetti westerns, I guess, as an art form. Now the final thing I want to say before I bail out of here is this. The Cheyenne theme song. Is it just me, or does it sound a little bit similar to the Empire March from The Empire Strikes Back? Am I the only one hearing this? I don't know. It could just be me. Sometimes music sounds alike. To me, it sounds similar. They're different, obviously, but there's a similar beat in there somewhere. See what I mean, anybody? Anybody? Nobody agree with me at all? Shit. Well, oh well. Well, that's all for now, folks. Until next time, adios, and I'll see you at the movies. Shit. It's the weekly Top Stories News Roundup of the Old West with our only news anchor, Farmer Spaghetti. Once upon a time in the West, bunch of shit happened in the West. This week's biggest story, local ginger family, the McBains, were all gunned down by who authorities think is this guy, the leader of a pack of outlaws known as the Cheyenne. Earlier that same day, 3 men were gunned down at the local train station by who authorities think is a man who placed a harmonica. Then even later that same day, turns out the Cheyenne that we were looking for in questioning with the McBain family murders has actually been in custody this whole time and has escaped by killing all of his captors, all of them lawmen with families and children and so forth. All of them now dead. So look out for that guy. The very next morning, 2 men were found gunned down on the McBain farm. The harmonica guy is also wanted in questioning with those 2 murders. Then, about a day later, this fatty was found shot to death along the railroad tracks, and 2 other men were found shot to death on a train. Cheyenne, harmonica guy, and someone known only as Frank are wanted in questioning with these 3 deaths. About a day after that, a bunch of dudes were gunned down on the streets of Flagstone. Once again, harmonica guy and Frank are wanted in questioning, but not Cheyenne because he was captured moments before that. But scratch that, he escaped moments later after that. And got in some sort of gun battle that resulted in the death of an undisclosed amount of lives, including that of train tycoon and iodized salt founder Morton. So once again, Cheyenne is wanted by the law and on the loose. So look out for him. He may be shot and wounded, we don't know. And the final top story this week, call off the search on that Frank guy. His corpse was found on none other than the McBain farm. That place is a coven of death. Stay the hell away from there. Harmonica is wanted in questioning with his killing, because he was seen by many witnesses riding away with the corpse of Cheyenne over his horse. So also call off the search on that Cheyenne guy because he too is dead. That has been the top news stories this week. Once upon a time in the West, a lot of shit went down in the West. Good night everybody, this has been the news. Lock your friggin' doors. It's a crazy world out there.